What's going on? Thank you for tuning into another episode of California Underground. I'm your host, Phil. Oh my gosh, I haven't had my tea yet, so I'm a little off tonight. I'm your host. Is Osvaldo. He is a Second Amendment advocate. He made sure to let me know that he is a Second Amendment advocate to make that very clear. And we're going to be talking about, yeah, Second Amendment instructor and Second Amendment advocate. And he has taught me to change my language and say that we are restoring. We are not expanding Second Amendment rights. We are restoring our Second Amendment rights because we always had them. They just were taken away from us. He's been a guest before. Love to have him on. Not the best shootings that have happened in the past week in California. But as always, with any sort of shooting that happens across the country, in California specifically, what's the first thing everybody always goes to? They always go right to the gun control. I would make an argument that now it's a knee-jerk reaction of gun control and a race issue. They were wrong on both of them. So all that, as well as what Noodle said about all of this. So Camille, Osvaldo, how are you guys doing tonight? Are you ready to get into some Second Amendment talk?
Good. I'm excited to hear what Osvaldo has to say. I know this is something he's very passionate about. So
I'm doing great. I really appreciate the invite, Phil, and glad to be here.
Yeah. Are watching on video, I am rocking my Second Amendment mug. Switching it out specifically for this episode. So let's get right into it. There were that happened in the past week. One was Monterey Bay, Monterey Park, and Half Moon Bay. Two different locations, two different instances. Monterey Park was tragic, and Monterey Park had an immediate reaction to what it was. First reaction was we need more gun control, which in California is crazy to think that we need any more gun control that would have stopped this. Second, that this was some sort of race, that it's always white supremacists. They quickly backed off that when they found out who the actor was. So let's just jump right into it. Osvaldo, what about Monterey Park and what happened, and would more gun control have stopped what happened in Monterey Park?
Where do I start? Monterey Park, by all intents and purposes, looks like it was somebody who had grievances with either the or patrons of the dance studio. Gentleman apparently attended the dance studio for many years. Apparently, by the accounts of witnesses, there apparently the gentleman just was not the most congenial patron of the establishment, and people had a really hard time dealing with him in that place. And apparently that, and probably God knows what other combination of factors sent this man off, and he went and did the horrible deed that he did, that he committed. Would any new law other than the bajillion law have done anything? No. The left and Democrats love to resort to more background checks, right? Background checks. Universal background. There is no background check that can look into someone's heart. It's just this that way. Okay, and so yeah, I mean, besides that, the gentleman, I shouldn't use man that committed that attack in Monterey Park. The main firearm that he used was a very old, what's known called Pac 10, is a very old school firearm. Apparently, he bought it back in the late 90s, 1999 to be exact. That's what LA County sheriffs said. And he modified it with a home built suppressor. For whatever reason, he thought he needed that, and he used that to commit this horrible crime. So, yeah, I don't know. The gun, by the way, the gun has been, that particular gun, due to the safe handgun roster that we have in California, was outlawed. But what happens when, what happened with the majority of the firearms that were outlawed by the, excuse me, people kept them. Who was going to go, oh, wow, my gun is outlawed now. I guess I should turn it in. Police. No.
Right.
Yeah.
So he sat on, and sadly, a few days ago, he used it to commit this horrible crime. So, yeah, no. In my opinion, I don't know what law can. There's no such thing.
Yeah, and this one, I mean, it's always so predictable when you hear these tragic stories happen, and whenever you hear the news happen on this, the first thing that everybody rushes to social media and Twitter and says, "Oh, you know, this is what happened in America, and your rights are not. You shouldn't have the right, or I shouldn't have to worry about being gunned down in public. So therefore, I should take your right away." And I found it interesting that the first out of these shootings is always to call out that it's a white supremacist. I don't know how they think it's always a white supremacist, but that's just their knee-jerk reaction, is that it's always a white supremacist. It's like toned down and dialed back once they find out who the shooter is. And there's a running joke that, like, as soon as they find out the ethnicity of the shooter, if they're not white, all of a sudden the story just disappears. If you never follow like Freedom Tunes or anything like that, Freedom Tunes actually released a funny cartoon this week about shootings, and whenever they find out the shooter is not it's not white, that they just forget about the story.
It happens as someone of melanated characteristics, but how and being objective, I see it, and if it's the race that fits the current narrative, which is, white man, they run with it. If it's not, it disappears within 24, 48 hours. It's just gone, and it's incredible because it's an incredible justice to the memory of those whose lives were taken by the perpetrator, and it waters down, the about it. It waters down, how is it that a crime committed by a certain segment of the population than by another? It's no.
Yeah.
You brought up hate crimes. They go first things first. They ask, "Oh, what kind of firearm was?" If somebody says long gun, it was an AR-15. Long gun equals AR-15, and then the tweets start flying. Just, by the thousands. Quick, AR-15. They start going to the evil black rifle. And almost equally as asking what was the race of the perpetrator. I don't know why, because still people whose lives were taken, they're still equally as gone.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and they do. It is kind of sad how they kind of diminish the tragedy by not paying attention because they cannot score more political points out of it.
Correct. It's horrible.
If this was a white shooter in a dance hall full of Asian Californians who are celebrating the Lunar New Year, this story would be dragged out in the news month after month.
Absolutely.
It would be a national story. President Biden, whole thing. But the fact that it was an Asian shooter, Asian attendees, it's already, and they're already like moving on from it. I mean, even Governor Newsom is moving on from it and starting to pivot what he's talking about politically. So it is a tragedy, and that I guess we can jump into the other one. Happened just a couple days later, which is this shooting in Half Moon Bay, which was up in Half Moon Bay Farms. The shooter's name was Chun Lee. He was 66. He was booked on suspicion of count of attempted murder. They believe he acted alone. He went into one mushroom farm, opened fire, killing 4 and wounded. He then drove to another nearby farm where he previously worked and killed another 3 people. Some were Asian, others were Hispanic, and some were migrant workers.
So a farm worker.
Farm workers, yeah. So he enacted this. He went on this shooting, and again, I feel the reaction was, "Oh, here we go, mass shootings and a white supremacist." Da, da, da. And then they found out the shooter was Asian. It's all, and you may. Podcast. If nobody else takes this away from this podcast, Osvaldo, I think you made the best point already, which is the fact that they cannot get political points out of this diminishes the tragedy that the people who lost their lives in this tragedy, because politicians cannot get their political points out of it. It's now just going to be swept under the rug and they're going to move on. So no one's really about it anymore, which is the saddest part of all of this.
What I will add to that is there is as a Second Amendment advocate, there is an amount of pushback. I see it in all their platforms, especially on Twitter, Instagram, wherever goes and makes his idiotic statements. It's starting to shift. I see a preponderance now of the comments of people challenging what it is that he's saying, and people and it's fascinating. It is refreshing as at the same time that it is painful, because we're talking about loss of life, right, of innocent life. However, I see people challenging him back, pushing back, saying, "What are you trying to do? So you want to take my guns away because of the bad deeds of somebody who let evil into their heart?" No.
Yeah.
I'll say that is somewhat refreshing for someone feels like myself. I feel like I'm behind enemy lines when it comes to trying to defend the Second Amendment in the state of California.
Something I think Osvaldo, you actually said it the other day, but something I always say is, hey, to murder someone is already illegal. Like, that's a crime. It's against the law, but they always jump to the gun argument immediately. The race, the gun argument.
Right.
Something this is kind of a legal question for you, Phil. Newsom was just signed back into office for a second term, and he swore under oath. And his exact words were, well, now I should probably read it. So I say his exact words were, "I, Gavin Newsom, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California." And yet he is relentlessly attacking the Second Amendment. That is not defending the Constitution of the United States. Am I wrong?
Well, I mean, if we were to hold every politician accountable for that oath, we'd be tar and feathering a lot of politicians, because
Yes.
so
Let's
many
do
of
it.
them, Yeah, so many of them don't listen to their oath to the Constitution and the way they trample on it. So, and I guess, I guess their way around it is, well, we can make the argument that the Second Amendment should be, regulated or kind of infringed upon. But yeah, I agree. No politician really holds up to that oath ever.
Okay, question again then, because what you just said about the Second Amendment can be regulated. 2008, DC versus Heller went to the Supreme Court. Didn't they say in that you can't regulate a constitutional right away?
There was language about because it was a licensing scheme to get a handgun, and they were preventing somebody in Colombia from getting a handgun. So they were basically saying you can't license a constitutional right, which still isn't really being listened to. The biggest thing that came out of DC versus Heller was that you do have a right to own a firearm in your. So that was sort of a monumental shift in Supreme Court jurisprudence when it comes to really the first one, DC versus Heller, where they said, yes, you have a right to own a firearm for protection of your home. We most recently got the Bruin decision, which was an amazing decision, that you are allowed to now carry outside. That is a protected constitutional under the Second Amendment. So slowly but surely, we are restoring our Second Amendment rights. I think that's funny that. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I add something? So the DC versus, and I was the late Scalia who wrote that decision. The left, monumental as a decision as it was, there is a point of contention in that decision. I wouldn't call it contention, but we in the Second Amendment advocacy we do identify a small portion of that decision that was flawed, and that is that Justice Scalia did say, and I'm not quoting, I'm paraphrasing, that Second Amendment is not without regulations that merit it, or something to that effect. He left, some wiggle room for regulation. The left has hung on for a very long time to incrementally establishing onto the Second Amendment.
Well, you give them an inch, they'll take a mile.
Yeah.
Anybody, just as a quick shout out for anybody who is watching live in the questions or comments for any of us, feel free to throw those in the chat.
Please do.
Chat.
I'm not charging.
So, yeah, it's all night long. We're not charging for anything. So,
That's why I'm really here. Yeah. I just want 1 hour of free legal advice.
Yeah. Everybody in the world wants 1 hour of free legal advice. Why don't we go ahead and watch straight from the horse's mouth? Why don't we watch Noodles and what he said about this? I know Osvaldo is going to.
Must we?
Probably. I mean, it's our job to kind of comb through this bad stuff and do it for the people. I mean, at least you weren't on the episode where we went through his whole inauguration speech.
Oh, snap.
Unless you were watching.
Yeah, I watched it.
So let's cue this up. This is some of the stuff that he was saying before. Obviously, this is all going to make great presidential video. So this was one on CBS. So let's play this one.
It's always a weapon of mass destruction. I mean, I get it. We can talk about the anomalous nature of this. So it is. But what is also anomalous is the fact that there's a pattern here in the United States of America. These mass shootings doesn't exist anywhere else in the world. It's free. And maybe that should be the fundamental focus. large capacity clips.
What did he say? What did he say? Large capacity.
Large
clips?
capacity.
This is the guy who wants to regulate your guns, and he doesn't know the correct verbiage for
large capacity clips. There's no such thing. There are standard capacity magazines, and there are reduced capacity magazines. By the infringements of the state of California, good California citizens are subjected to.
I mean, that's one of those examples. He's saying that's a problem, but high capacity magazines are not available in California, so that's already something, right? Do I have that right?
Right. I'm sure that's what he meant, but yeah, those are illegal in California.
Correct. We do have an outstanding lawsuit in the works, which hopefully very shortly will be that law will be declared unconstitutional, and we'll get restored our right to our standard capacity magazines. But yes, those magazines have been outlawed for a while here in the state of California. But by golly, guess what? People are willing to commit murder using them. They're not subjecting
Fancy that.
a 10-round magazine limitation. How about that?
Mm-hmm.
Said hopefully it will be overturned soon. And if you don't know that reference, that's Judge Robert Benitez down here in the Southern District, who's very pro Second Amendment. Anything that comes out of California pro Second Amendment usually comes through him. Let's go, Saint Benitez.
Just insane. There's no. It's insane. These people are perpetuating lunacy and should be ashamed of themselves.
But when is a suicide pact,
Feels
there
like
might-
it increasingly.
But there are people in this country that support this.
I'm not really quite sure what he means by he feels like the Second Amendment is a suicide pact. That's some odd. Like, what does he mean by that? It's a suicide pact. That we're
I was
all
trying to figure
bound.
that out too.
I mean, people made a
Like
big
if
deal
you,
about- Yeah, go ahead.
I feel like I think what he's saying is if you want to advocate for guns, you're basically giving someone the right to kill you within themselves. I think that's where he's going with that.
Yeah, something to that effect. That the root of all evil is the active for the history of society of humanity. Prior to guns, murder didn't happen.
Right.
Basically. Okay.
How they killed Julius Caesar.
No.
How they did.
It's a mystery. Yeah.
It's a mystery. There were no guns in the Roman Empire times, but somehow Julius Caesar was murdered. So,
I support. I have great respect. I have no ideological opposition with him. Responsibly owning firearms, getting background checks, and being trained.
So, in the span of 1 minute, he goes from talking about how all these people who cling to their guns and perpetuate, as he calls it, should be ashamed of themselves. He thinks his political brain is working over because he's at one hand he's saying, well, I'm the governor of California, so I have to spew this progressive crap. Going, oh no, wait, hold on, I someday, and I got to win over those dumb Iowa voters in the Midwest. So I'm with people who own guns lawfully, except that I think that they should be ashamed of themselves. And I fancy feeling from Gavin Newsom that if you are a law-abiding, reasonable gun owner in California, that he's just fine with that. He's fine.
No.
With, the fact that you can own a gun. He doesn't care. Get your background check, man. It's all cool. Do whatever you want. I love that. You know, I love gun owners like that. Do you get that feeling from Gavin Newsom that that's his mantra on people who own guns in California?
Seeing as how I'm a member of the GOP and he attacks the GOP no less than 10 times per day, no, he hates everything about me. There's no warm and fuzzy feelings here. Add that I'm a gun owner, and it's like he probably wants me to die by gun.
I believe, I'm not
around.
sure if it's coming here or he said it in another setting, but the guns, as long as they're in a safe, I'm fine with your guns as long as they're locked up and unloaded and all that. Take them out whenever you go hunting, because that's what they say, right? Is for hunting.
But don't kill animals, because that's inhumane.
Immoral, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely not getting the warm and fuzzies from Gavin Newsom with him respecting responsible gun owners, which are the overwhelming majority of gun owners are responsible gun owners, who it's always this tiny percentage.
Like his like sorry, like I was going to say, his unseen 6 armed security guards that are off the scene of this camera.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're all responsible gun owners.
Security. Yeah, 360 degree security. And in that segment right there, and which is amazing, most people caught it. They were like, as you're disparaging, you are flanked, surrounded by armed guards, and I guarantee you they do not have 10-round mag. Guarantee.
No. They get.
You mean large capacity clips?
Large capacity.
Yeah,
clips.
of course they got large capacity clips.
They're walking around large.
Yep.
Your kid doesn't accidentally shoot themselves or I love. Absolutely not. Never suggested that. That's what they immediately do. Who wants to take away your guns? I just want to take away weapons of war that are illegal. California should be illegal across the United States.
Weapons of war. This is one of favorite phrases, Osvaldo. What is a weapon of war you can own in the state of California?
0. What they hang on to are mostly cosmetic features. The black, if it's black and it's immediately scary. If it's not a wooden stock, because wooden stock fire are the good ones, are the ones that do not give you evil thoughts. Immediately, when you hold that wooden stock, you immediately become Elmer Fudd, and you just want to put on your hat and go. No, the black firearms are the ones that make you a murderer. And if they have a pistol grip, that if that right, you're immediately a mass murderer, and it just, those evil thoughts permeate into your brain, and they just can't get out. I'm sorry.
Also clarify.
I gotta get off my soapbox. I went a little bit long on that one.
Well, that's why we invited you on.
Is my nerves.
For people who don't know, Osvaldo is also a veteran. So when asking weapons of war, he would know very well. Can you own? No, and that's always their favorite thing, is it's a weapon of war, because an AR-15 looks like a big scary black rifle. And it's not a weapon of war. Is that the standard issue rifle military? It was the Marines, correct?
Correct. No, it's not. In the military, this military for quite some time, and now that they're going through different refresh of their hardware, it's still it's going to fire. It's going to be a rifle tip that allows for either semi-automatic fire or 3-round burst or full off. And those would be technically your weapons of war. However, I will say this: the vast majority of the free states, not California, you can own machine guns. It's expensive. It is the laws at the federal level that were passed. People say that machine guns are out. They can't be manufactured anymore since 1980. Oh my gosh, 1983, 1984, I believe, or 1986 is one of those 3 years. that machine guns were outlawed for manufacture. Machine gun that was created before that, prior to that, can still be transferred. It's just a credit, which in turn makes only extremely wealthy people able to own these, because they pay the exorbitant amounts of taxes to the government, can go through the extensive background and acquire these. The only other way that machine guns can be manufactured, you are a if you have a special designation as a firearms manufacturer. I won't go too into detail about that, but yeah.
I have a comment on this clip right here. It says something about, getting
This
the guns
large
off of
capacity
the
clip we're watching.
yes, get them off the streets of California. How about we start with getting the criminals off the streets of California and back into the jails that Gavin Newsom released, and maybe the homeless people, and then maybe I'll be willing to talk about these large capacity clips. But come on, Gavin, let's look at the real problem here.
Well, it's got to be. Yeah.
I'm so glad you bring that up, Camille, because I've been bringing it up now for a while. All these folks bring up the mafia, cartels, mob, the gangbangers, and the crooked cops that have no problem in dealing the black market, all these firearms, but and the Moms Demand Action groups, and the Every Town's for Gun Safety, and the Newtown for gun safety. All these programs and nonprofits, they do their rallies in their posh communities, in the malls. You will never see them in the inner city, in the back alleys where the crime happens, where the people that are holding the guns, that are actually committing crimes with those guns. You will never see them having one of those rallies. They're demanding that the criminal elements hand them their guns. You won't see them do that. You will never see Gavin Newsom, a actual crime hidden area of any city without it being sanitized.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I would love to tell this to his face.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword, because they want time to happen, yet they also want you self-defense mechanisms, which
No doubt.
It's got to be one or the other. I mean, between us who are sitting here talking about it, I'm not going to give up the right to self-defense, but you should at least be cleaning up the streets. So they want you to be, while also living in these dangerous neighborhoods. All right, let's see what else we'll finish this video.
Before
and I think
you
there's
continue,
another-
I'll just throw in something really quick. Say, in the Second Amendment community, making good people defenseless won't make bad people harmless.
Mm.
It
That's a
does
great
not
saying.
work that way.
Yeah, I like that.
I mean, just literally use common sense.
Oh, that was it. Okay, here's another. See what he has to say.
Monterey Park. Notes, and it starts, it's right here, right up on the right. It says Aurora,
That freaking
goes down to Midland,
just can't
Orlando.
stand that grin.
It's a slimy grin, that's for sure.
Buffalo, Poway, Parkland, San Jose, Sutherland, Sandy Hook, Boulder.
Okay, this is him just naming off stuff. We don't. To act.
Name enough.
Let's see
But
what he has to say.
he-
on-
Things that happen.
Because
Let's see what he has to say on CNN. So, And for those who are not watching, it says California Governor Newsom shames GOP for blocking stricter gun, because it's always those darn GOP members just blocking these. Why won't you think of the children? That's always their reply.
Yep.
Why won't you give up your for the children?
They're devastating because the stories are not just about a bullet wound or a loved one's life lost. It's a myriad of issues. It's the person that's on the hospital bed who's battered, they just put a rod in the leg, who says, I need to get out of the healthcare bills, or I need to get out of here because I can't lose my job tomorrow. And the farm workers here who literally said, I have no paycheck today. I have no cash. I can't even buy food tonight. I mean, the complete abject failure exposed yesterday and today. I mean, complete, utter failure of common sense on gun safety and immigration policy. So for me, I guess maybe 22 days and 32 trillion gallons of water falling in the state and being in a crisis of droughts and floods, and now 2 mass shootings in 3 days.
The perfect line for him to say after this is, after all this, I guess it's time for me to resign because I haven't handled any of this stuff correct. Handled immigration correctly. I haven't handled gun safety correctly. I haven't handled 32 trillion gallons of water falling on the state correct. We're still going to be in a drought. I guess that means I'm a bad governor and I should resign. That should be his next line. Do you think that's going to be his next line?
No, I think he's going to say, I have another event to get to. So someone call my hairdresser so that I can get my hair regelled.
Yeah.
Phil, on a serious note, Phil, like you always say, Democrats have been in control of California for decades. If they really want all this legislation to pass, they could have passed it. They could have fixed all these issues. And while this story that he just told is really sad about the guy who's like, I can't stay in the hospital to heal because I've got to go get a job or get to my job because I don't have any money in the bank. That guy woke up with that issue. The shooting didn't change that issue. He doesn't have any money in the bank. The shooting didn't change that. Now, I'm not trying to take away from the shooting. That's really tragic. And I get the point of the story. But Newsom, we are dealing with crazy taxes. This guy fixed that problem. Like, look at that guy and go, why don't you have any money in the bank? Like, if you're working every day, how come you have no money in the bank today? Is it maybe because I'm not fixing a damn thing in this state and you can't afford to live here anymore? Like, stop and think about that for a second. But, he's just thinking about his hair appointment, so.
Yeah. Is it because for the last, for the last half year or more, you haven't been able to afford the gas tank for your commuting to and from work? And the insane grocery prices for your family? Is it because of that? And because my legislature has failed at every opportunity to provide tax relief, for example? No, we won't do that.
Yeah, it's like I've said before. If progressive policies worked, California would be a utopia. And merch on sale in my store if you're interested in showing that off. Subtle plug. But yeah, it's.
I'm pretty sure I own that one.
You're right on the nose here that California has had the ability to basically ram whatever it wants through, all the progressive policies it wants. Nobody's stopping them at this point. They can ram through laws and regulations, whatever they want. So why are there things that are so still catastrophically so bad in California? Probably because your policies don't work, and that's the bottom line. Like in California, say, well, why don't universal health care in California? You could ram that through. Oh, because Gavin Newsom wants to run for president and he doesn't want socialized medicine. That's going to probably, because he knows lapse in California, and then it will look horrible in the country. Why don't you fix the gas prices? Because you're stuck on this green energy thing, and you You have to go forward with it, and you've made this pledge now. You've made this pact with the greenies, and you have to get rid of all the fossil fuels. So here we go. We got to do that. We can't fix this unilaterally.
And their entire party probably has stock on it.
That's true. So if he wants to get stuff done, he has a supermajority in the legislature. He can just go to him and say, "Hey, I want to," and there would be a bill on his desk right away. Like there's no, I don't know, there's nothing stopping them from getting stuff done. And the fact that blame the Republicans for anything in California is they have no power at the state level.
Well, he's made a comment recently, like the state of California won't do it, so it's on you, Congress. Which I'm like, okay.
The state of California do it is the question. Would it?
That is a great
Scott
question.
Wiener would, someone like Scott Wiener would
get gun violence if you can get him to stop writing bills to protect trans children or whatever he wants to focus on that day. So
I'm sure Wiener is just waiting for Gavin to give him I'm sure he's just waiting for him to give him the go ahead, and he's just going to slap it right on his desk and be like, "Here, it's ready. I've had it ready to go."
Yeah. Ready to go. All right, let's see what else he has to say.
I guess I'm a little more prone to express myself about my frustrations with what I'm not seeing nationally and particularly in Congress right now.
Okay.
We need the federal government to do its job. This is on everybody. This is our decision to live in these conditions. It doesn't exist anywhere else in the world. So we've chosen this. We've accepted this. We can sit there and say, this is the price, I guess, of whatever. Freedom.
I think freeze frame him right there. Freedom.
Yeah.
Air quotes. Freedom. Really?
So slimy.
this is the price we have to pay for
Freedom. I'm sorry.
And
Osvaldo,
didn't he
what's your
say that
thoughts
California is
on-
the freest? He did say that California is the freest state.
Yeah.
The joke that was.
Yeah, California is the state of total freedom.
And I
But
guess this is the price we pay.
this is the price you
So-
pay to have so much freedom here in California.
Yeah, you asked me about my thoughts about that. It's fascinating to see authoritarians, right, disparage the basis of this country, what made this country outstanding, and what makes people walks of life of many different countries risk their life, even break our laws to get as
Yeah.
bad as it is. That's the context that I can bring as somebody who knows plenty. They still flock to us by whatever means necessary, whether it's legally or illegal. As bad as it is still the beacon of hope for the world. And I will say, and it is a cliche, but it is a true one, the right that has secured has been the Second Amendment. It has been an armed populace. Because when authoritarianism rears head into government systems, which is the natural progression of every government system, going from freedom to authoritarianism and totalitarianism, we've had armed America to deter them.
Yeah.
And that's the difficult conversation that not a lot of people like to, but it is true. An armed population is harder to oppress.
Yeah. Politicians talk about it that way because I think they know that's honestly the reason for it. Have to wrap it up in, well, we know an armed populace is harder to control.
Therefore,
we have to try and take your guns through another method, guilt and shame and emotions
Correct.
and all of this stuff to get you to give them up willingly, or force you to give them up.
Correct.
So it's not, and it comes down to, it's not always, they're not going to tell you straight you to not be armed because it's easier for you to control. They'll do it through other means. So
I'll say another thing to caveat on what you just said, Phil. They won't tell you to your face that they are capable of protecting you, of fulfilling that promise of safety that they did. Vote for me, and I will make you safe. Vote for me, Mr. and Mrs. Politician, and I will make sure. The latest one who said it was what's her name? The one that became the LA mayor, Karen Bass.
yeah,
Is that her name? She said it,
Yes.
and I went right to her Twitter page when she said it. She posted that video, and I said, "No, you promise to anyone that you are going to make them safe. That is a promise you will fail to deliver."
Where are her
It is-
guns exactly? The ones that were stolen out of her home?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, there were.
You think that those are in a legal background check to gun owner's hands? Law-abiding citizen?
Of course they are, Camille. Come on. Come on, they
checking.
are. Yeah.
it was one law-abiding gun owner taking owner. I was reading an interesting article. I think it was who was talking about how the new sheriff, Robert Luna, who was not the guy who should have won, and for everybody who was a Republican who said, I'm not going to show up for Villanueva because he is a Democrat. Well, congratulations. You got this guy who is horrible. I grilled him on why did it take so long for you to respond and let people know that there was a mass shooter on the loose. And I talked to previous chiefs, previous higher ups in law enforcement. They all said the same thing, which was, I understand why you would not have let people know that there was a mass shooter on the loose so that you could take proper precautions to protect yourself. But this is just on your point that politicians will promise that they'll keep you. And then someone like the sheriff of LA County is not even keeping the people of LA because he did not let them know that the shooter was on the loose. So, but yeah, they'll promise safety, give up your way to defend yourself, and we'll keep you safe. But then when they have the actual power, they're not going to keep you safe. All right, let's finish this video out and to have some stuff to talk about before we finish up. Got about 10 minutes left to go.
This is the price. I get freedom. Freedom from what? To have your kid to hide under the desk each and every year as opposed to 2 or 3? Freedom from what? Having ability to be anywhere in a crowd, dancing with a loved one, on New Year's Eve, living in.
Oh, okay. All right.
Stories are devastating.
Oop. Wait a minute. We're done with you. Sorry, Noodles. That's enough of you.
Exactly.
That's enough of you.
I can only handle him in
Freedom from
small
what?
capacity. Sorry.
Small bite size.
Small capacity clips is all I can handle of him.
Don't want to barf too much.
Small capacity, not as opposed to large capacity clips.
Right.
So obviously this is the price we pay for freedom, according to Gavin Newsom. But he does have no problem with law about. So Osvaldo, you wanted to talk about. You had some things you wanted to bring up as well to talk about in terms of, I think, women in self-defense and they should exercise their Second Amendment more. So I wanted to give you the chance to talk about that as well before we close out tonight.
Absolutely, and I appreciate it. I women students, and I am proud to say that the vast majority, over 90%, 95% of my students are women. Women are have been for the last probably 5 years the largest demographic purchasing firearms and getting trained. Okay, we've had a massive cultural shift where women, whether they are single women or by their significant others, what have you, to get armed and get trained because they understand. They can see it. They go out in town and they have this dude or this weird van that follows that they've seen following them around the shopping parking lot or what have you, and that is how real life provides an impetus, right, for people to take their security in. There's nothing like real life to actually give you that gut check. Oh, cops are not gonna be everywhere. You know what I mean? And be everywhere. We do not want a society where cops are everywhere. And that's something that I've been wanting to tell the people for a while. We do not want to live in a, what's that Sylvester Stallone movie where cops are everywhere? Is it Demolition Man or Judge Dredd or both?
One
Judge
of those
Dredd?
two. One of the futuristic movies.
Yeah. Everywhere, right? And they're judging you on your acts right away, and that's how everyone's kept in line. Nobody wants that. It's asking for that. So what in turn is what you need is the ability to defend yourself whenever, if the time comes. I'm a tool guy. I love tools. I have tons of. There's very few tools me and my students and our loved ones with this capacity of not just equalizing ourselves superior to someone who's trying to, and that is the firearm. That is the quintessential, some people call them equalizer, but I say you need to have firepower than somebody has to do who's trying to victimize. And guess what? You can be victimized with a firearm, a knife, a bat, a car, right? And what is more, beneficial to you than having this fantastic tool of plastic and mechanical intricacies that allows you to protect yourself. So let me share a very quick story. Last night, Riverside County Sheriff Bianco was watching him on Instagram, and the situation with the CCWs. Hey, we hear that the state wants to make it increasingly, difficult for us to carry firearms. He said, in the Riverside County, I am not going to enforce any of those unconstitutional laws, and that's fantastic. But one thing that caught my attention the most was somebody in the comment section of Instagram who said, I've been wanting to get my CCW, but I hear expensive. Guess what makes it too expensive? The laws.
Legislation.
The laws. The gun control laws that these knuckleheads in Sacramento up with, right, for the purposes of keeping, all they do is create incredible barriers of access to the good people, the people who, like that woman, I don't know her living situation, she could be single, a single woman, like I've had students who have to live in the real world and not like our politicians who live in their ivory towers.
Mm-hmm.
Well, on that note,
yeah, please.
sorry, I just wanted to add, I'm a female. I'm married. I'm not single, but my husband can't be with me every second of every day. You know, I have a right to defend myself, my kids. And I did, I mean, Phil knows about it. I had a situation last year. I had to call the police. In the time between the police got here, I had my gun loaded and ready to go. because I had an actual threat.
Yes, and
You know,
I've
mean,
heard. I'm glad it worked out for you, but I've gotten those stories from my students. They get that shock of reality. Something like that happens to them. I've had them tell me stories like that when they were at home, when they were not at home. Should you not have your right to defend yourself wherever you are at? But we have politicians say you have a law for sensitive places. What? What? People don't get targeted in sensitive places. Come on now, stop it with that nonsense. So what I want to encourage anyone who's listening to my voice or watching this video, please advocate for your rights assertively. Do not apologize for wanting with the best tool available to you. Do not give in to anyone, because guess what? They do not live your life. You live your life. Your life is your most valuable possession, not theirs.
Yeah, completely agree, and especially with the sensitive places argument. I mean, you're creating the entire state is now one giant soft target for people who want to do evil, which is they know, well, can carry here, nobody can carry there, no one can carry in a grocery store. Lots of places that come and congregate. So they know they're soft targets, and they know that they can just go in, carry, and defend themselves. It's a lot harder for someone who wants to perpetrate evil if they know I'm going to go into a and I'm not only the people are. So, you know, a lot of these people at the end of the day, they're mostly cowards because, you know, they're mostly cowards. They don't want to get in a fire, want to have any confrontation. So this is where they're at. Politicians try and make the entire state a sensitive place. Just are putting us in danger because now we. So, someone in the chat said it was Judge Dredd was the movie.
Judge Dredd, thank you. The number one incentive for someone with a criminal intent to carry out that deed is believing that they can get away with it. That is the number one incentive.
Actually, I have a kind of interesting story. I'm sorry, I keep interrupting. I have kind of an interesting story about carrying. So a few years ago, there was an incident in a neighboring city. I believe it was an armed robbery. And there was like 3 or 4 of them, and they fled. And one of them got away and actually ran into my church building. It was during the summer. And they had to lock down all the buildings, the neighboring buildings. But it was determined that he was actually hiding out in my former church. The week prior to that incident, there was Vacation Bible School with a bunch of, like preschool through 5th grade age kids, hundreds. It's a pretty big church. There was hundreds of kids all week long there. My friend is a former Marine, and his kids were actually in that program, and he was working from home, but he decided to go work at the church that day on his laptop. He concealed carries. And he was just there the week prior with all the kids. And he's like, if this incident had happened, there was kids at risk. It was an armed man who came, and he's like, but I would have been there. I had my gun. I would have been ready to go. I'm a trained, Marine. Not that he had to be trained, but he's like, I had carry. I was sitting right there. I would have been able to, before the police even found him, I would have had the situation taken care of and protected those kids.
A fighting chance.
Exactly.
What's so wrong about that?
Yeah. Is that so much to ask for? Is we want to, in the name of freedom, we can't do that, according to Gavin Newsom. Having a fighting chance is too much in the name of freedom.
Right.
Well, it's always when it comes to the Second Amendment here in California, but I think the tide is turning, at least at the Supreme Court level, which helps a lot because California can't overrule the Supreme Court. And advocates like yourself, Osvaldo, who are out there on the front lines pushing. We need a lot more of you guys out there and educating people. That's the most important thing. The fact that you educate people, train them. I feel like education is the number one thing when it comes to guns. People who don't know anything about guns are very scared until the minute they actually pick one up and try it out. And say either one thing, they go, hey, this is actually pretty fun. I enjoy this. And it's not as scary as I thought it was. And I think I want to get one for myself. With that, is there thoughts that you have, Osvaldo? We'll take the final thoughts for tonight as our guest regarding whether it's the shootings or what in these videos.
Thank you so much. First of all, thank you for having me here. What I want to your audience, advocate for rights can only be protected by you, and a right that is not exercised is a right that you do not have. So exercise all of your rights. That's all.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Yeah, and as always, as I like to finish up, you best thing you can do to support, share it with somebody, text them, AOL instant messenger, however you want to do it. I don't care. Send them an old school letter, carrier pigeon, let them know about the show. They got some good stuff. And we're here every Thursday night at 8 p.m. You can also listen to it on Spotify, Apple, Google. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, review, all of that stuff. And we'll see you on the next one. Have a good night, everybody.